Hey, what's up? Today I want to show you how you can create a filmic vintage look for your videos. My name is Dominik, I'm a filmmaker from Germany, and if you have watched other videos on this channel, you might see that I'm pretty much a sucker for everything when it comes to creating a vintage look. I'm collecting vintage lenses, I'm experimenting with do-it-yourself anamorfake filters, so filters that make your image look like it was shot on an anamorphic lens, and I'm creating my own diffusion filters. So when I'm going for a vintage look, I'm trying to get everything right or maybe wrong before it hits the sensor, so I can get a very authentic, characteristic look right in camera. However, if you have tried shooting with vintage lenses, you know the hassle. Sometimes the focus ring is stuck, sometimes these lenses are just like 50, 60 years old, and time has taken its toll on them and they are not so easy to work with. They don't have autofocus. If you have a run and gun setup and you want to shoot for clients and professional work, you are probably relying on these modern days Sigma lenses or similar lenses. And I'm pretty much in a love and hate relationship with them because they are so easy to work with. If you want to have something crystal sharp, you can get that by a push of a button. Yeah, it's just convenient to work with these modern lenses. On the other hand, I feel they have a big lack of characteristics, if you want to call it that way. So I was very happy when the guys at Dehancer contacted me if I would like to try out their new beta version of their film emulating plugin. And just so you know, they gave me complete access to the trial version, but they're not paying me anything for this review. So this is my unbiased opinion about it. So I filmed a sequence with 3 different setups. The first one was my GH5S paired with the Sigma 16mm F1.4. Pretty much the least favorite lens of mine when it comes to creating a vintage look, because it's just so sharp. It's a wide angle lens and yeah, you don't get a lot of cinematic feels from it. So I was curious what the plugin can do to that to make it look more vintage. The second setup was also one that I wanted to challenge the plugin with, because I shot it on my phone. But as you might know, there's nothing less vintage than shooting footage with your phone, and it's really tough to get a vintage film look from phone footage. And the last one was my GH5 paired with this vintage Vivitar 28mm F2.5, but on a speedbooster, which pretty much makes it an F1.5. And I also adapted this anamorfake 3D printed filter on the rear, so I would get the bokeh that you're used to from anamorphic lenses. I will show you all the 3 sequences without and with the plugin on it, and after that we will take a dive into the plugin itself in Davinci Resolve, and I will show you what I did with it. So here I'm in Davinci Resolve. This is the clip that I filmed with the 16mm lens. I have the Dehancer effect on an adjustment clip. The adjustment clip beneath is just some basic color correction, nothing too crazy. And this is what the effect is, with all effects within the effect ticked off. And I will go through them one by one to show you what they do. So the first one pretty much is, yeah, you can change the input settings. If you shoot on lock, you could choose a lock profile. Mine was shot in Rec 709, so I left it at that. And yeah, this is where the magic happens, or starts to happen. This is the first one, the film developer. It is all based on the chemical process that was used when developing film, because you had to mix a bunch of chemicals together, and so you would get out different colors, different contrasts, and yeah, just a different image based on how the chemical process was done. And this plugin emulates that step by step. And the next one is the film profile. So basically, I mean, this is a photo film, but basically the type of film that you want to use for your shot. I chose on this one Fujichrome ProVia 100F, and it makes the image look like that, and you have an instant vintage vibe now coming from that image. And on this one I did not use the film compression. I could have done, it takes down the highs a little bit more, and yeah, maybe I'll leave it on for now. Expand is basically the darkest points and the brightest parts. You can change that. And then it comes to the print profile. So I had this Kodak glossy paper, and also added the analog range limiter, which makes it a little more flat, and it's already a pretty cool look. I didn't touch the color head. This is basically a color correction feature. Here comes the part that goes beyond the color profile, color correction part, because this will add film grain to your image, and you can choose from many different sizes of film and ISO values. You might know from a digital camera, the higher the ISO, the more grain you might get. With digital cameras, this grain looks pretty ugly most of the times, but with film, that added to the vintage characteristics or that we associate with vintage film. Personally, I'm not a fan of too much grain in my footage, but on this one I went for the 65mm ISO 250 just to add a little grain. Next one is pretty much my favorite effect, and the cool thing is you can also buy these effects one by one on the Dehancer website. You don't have to buy the pro version. You can also choose your favorite parts of this effect and keep it kind of modular. This is the halation effect, and I wasn't aware of it, that this effect adds so heavily to a vintage characteristic. I just wasn't aware. I did not hear about it before I checked out this plugin. It adds a red orange glow around certain parts of the image. It's just crazy because it instantly looks old and looks like film if you add this red glow. Without it, with the glow. The next one is, that was what a diffusion filter would do. I always put my own diffusion filters on, but they're not too crazy, and here you have the chance to add a little more glow to the image to make it look a little more dreamy, and I did that as well. I did not use the film damage on this. I will show you on another clip just in a minute. Also not the film breath, which is a variation in the, I feel like in the development of parts of the film, because it gives you a little flickery effect. But I did use the gate weave, which is pretty much the wobbly effect that you would get when the film gets dragged across a projector and it's not perfectly aligned. So it does a little wave. This is why the image also gets a little larger, because it compensates for the movement that is created in there. Yeah, as you see, with all these effects on, even my pretty beefed up computer has a hard time to process all of that. You just have to render a preview and check that out. This is the Anamorfake one, and on this one I chose a few other film settings. On this one I used everything very lightly, so I did not use the bloom because the lens has so much bloom in it already. I also used only very slight halation, but I really felt like it just adds a really cool effect to it. Yeah, nothing too crazy here, but I feel like the combination of this lens with this effect is so freaking cool. This was the phone footage, and on this one I really went a little crazy. So I pumped up the grain, I used a lot of the 8mm settings, cranked up the bloom. On some of the settings you have custom features, you can dial in the settings yourself. I also added this film damage effect and all the other ones, the film breath and the gate weave. I'm not sure if my machine will play back now, but you have seen it in the other clip as before. Overall, pretty heavy use of this effect on the phone footage, but this was the one that needed the most to get it somewhere near a vintage look. So there you have it, that is the Dehancer plugin. I have to say I really liked it, especially when it came to the footage that was captured by this vintage lens. And this is where I really see this plugin shine, and it just makes sense because you have a vintage lens, you have footage that looks like it was captured in another time because it goes through an old lens, and then it hits the sensor, and this plugin emulates the sensor if the sensor was film. So I think it's a really cool plugin for everyone that owns vintage lenses that maybe also owns some of those more modern anamorphic lenses that are getting cheaper and cheaper, and you are really able to get a really cool film look with this plugin when it is paired with authentic vintage gear. When it came to the Sigma and the smartphone footage, I was quite impressed what it can do to it, but I could still feel that the origin of that footage was still very modern and clean. So it did some cool stuff to these clips as well, but I really loved how I got inspired by it when I paired it with the vintage lens. If you want to check out the plugin, I will leave a link down in the description, and if you are interested to buy it, you can use a promo code DominikZuman where you can get a 10% discount. If you like this video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, and if you have any comments, drop them down there in the comment section. I'll be hanging out down there. See you in the next one. Cheers.